This episode is brought to you by Tina's Vodka.
My name is Mistie Bass-Boyd, and I am the Executive Director of Player Engagement and Basketball Operations for the Detroit Pistons, and this is her table.
Now you see her.
You are magnificent!
Welcome to Her Table, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the badass women who are redefining the game. Join hosts Kate Foley and Megan Martinez as they unlock the secrets of success from the brightest female pioneers in the industry.
We are so excited to be back at NBA Summer League in Las Vegas, and I am so excited to welcome in our guest today, Mistie Bass-Boyd. She is a former WNBA player. She worked at Nike, which Kate will touch on, and she's got a new exciting role coming up that we're really happy to talk about.
I know. I think we have breaking news today on the show. On our news desk in Las Vegas, we have breaking news here in the NBA. This is long overdue having Mistie Bass-Boyd on. Known her for a long time. She has been in and out of the league from the WNBA side to the NBA side, and now fully the queen of the castle, I think, at the Detroit Pistons, one of the new franchises that are rebuilding. I think for her, this is going to be a great day to tell her full story. I'm so excited to get her on. So much to dive into. We're thrilled here in Las Vegas today. We can't wait to get into it. Let's welcome Mistie Bass-Boyd to Her Table. Mistie, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's been a long time coming. I feel like every time I saw her all through season, I'm like, you have to come on, you have to come on. And now finally she's here.
I know.
Like
you've been talking about it forever. So I'm like, I finally get to meet Mistie. I'm so excited.
Schedules match.
I did. Thank you, Summer League. Aligned. Another day at NBA Summer League. And you're here now in such a different capacity, which is so exciting. So before we jump into it, I want you to give our listeners just kind of a little bit of where you started and where you are. And then we'll jump into where you are.
Definitely.
There's new stuff coming out today.
Yes. So I started my career as a WNBA athlete and played in the WNBA for 10 years, but did year round for 12. So I played 12 years overseas in eight different countries.
Wow.
And then in 2017, I got pregnant with my first son, and ended up playing basketball 2.5 months after I gave birth to him in Australia.
Goodness.
Yes, I don't, in like perspective, I don't know if that was the best situation, but it definitely did teach me a lot about kind of what I wanted for my future.
Okay.
Ended up coming back. I played in Lebanon as well, and then went to the LA Sparks, which is when, bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody.
when I got cut. So that was kind of the end where I had to ask myself, do I want to continue to pursue this life that I've had, or is it time to step away and see what else, God has for me?
Yeah.
And
that had to have been a hard decision because you've been an athlete your whole life.
Yeah.
You've played basketball. You're from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
How hard is that as an athlete to make that decision to hang it up? I mean, I go through it with a lot of guys. We just talked about this. When do you know the time is? How did you come to that decision? That had to have been really hard.
Yeah, I think every athlete in their mind believes that they're going to be able to dictate when they get to walk away from the game and to do it on their own terms. And there's something empowering to think about being able to do it, but very few of us are able to do it that way. And so for me, I always told myself from the beginning, if this becomes about money, it's time to walk away, because you would be taking away an opportunity for somebody who was as hungry as you were in that moment. And so I think that's for powerful. Me, I didn't want to go overseas anymore. I had had my time in the WNBA. I felt like I had an amazing, incredible career. I had a WNBA championship. I wasn't fighting for anything other than a check. And so as hard as it was for me to walk away and not know what was next, it was the right decision for everyone.
That's so crazy, because I think even in my career, I've been in that place where like, I've done all of these things.
Yeah.
You keep doing the same things over again, or you kind of let God dictate where the next path is for you. And that's a scary place to be as an athlete, because you're so regimented. This is, I'm going to play. I have practice. This is what my life is. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so it's Tuesday and here we are. But I think so many women, and I think the WNBA is so fascinating because it's shifting now. That culture's shifting.
Yep.
And the visibility for women's basketball has now been put on a stage that it's rightfully deserved for a long time, but hasn't necessarily got.
Yeah.
What does that feel like as a retired player to see it probably where you wanted it to be when you played? What's it like to see it now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about that without going all the way back. When I was in the 6th grade, which I believe was 1996, in my brain I was going to play in the NBA. Like, you couldn't tell me anything different. And so in 1997, when the WNBA started, like, I had a path. It was realistic. It became very real for me that I could live out my greatest dreams at that time. And so when I finally got to feel that dream come true, that was the 10th year of the league. And so I felt like I was a part of that second generation of athletes and talent that were going to continue to build on the shoulders of giants and continue to like help the league survive. Because if you think about it, 2008 happened and the world collapsed in the economic world, and we had to literally fight our way through to continue that league.
Wow.
And I was a part of that fabric.
Wow.
And so if you think all the way, I made it from 2006 all the way to 2017. I did my job, as a part of the building. And though I wasn't able to, capitalize on the amazing things that are happening for these women now, I do feel a tremendous amount of pride that I was a part of the building that they're now experiencing. And they too, as much as they're getting now, they'll be that next step where they weren't getting what the new ones are getting. So I'm just so happy to see it. I'm so happy that we're a part of the conversation. I'm so happy that when I go to ESPN.com and I click basketball, I don't have to go to the others to find women's basketball. Like, it's just so cool to just see it thriving and to still be a part of it in a different way now. Sometimes I have to pinch myself, like, I used to do that.
That's amazing. And for me, like, just this next generation where you're seeing Caitlin Clark, you're seeing athletes like Angel Reese, how do you think that those young players have really impacted the WNBA, and where do you see the WNBA evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the thing that I love, which was maybe inadvertently shunned, was being your entire self authentically. There were only so many women who played who could do that with 100% confidence that it wasn't going to backlash or they were going to be framed as a certain type of player. And so the thing that I love about this new generation of players is that they are themselves 100% unapologetically, deal with it or keep it moving. And I love it. I love the grit, the girliness, all of it. I'm like, yes. I go back to my pictures like, gosh, I wish I would have done something with my baby hairs back then. But it's like, I love to see it. They are brands. Each and every one of them are brands, and I just love to see it. So, the future of this game, it's untapped. I think the more that the women continue to compete, to show their emotion, to show that they're the competitors that they are, people are just going to continue to fall in love with the game because I do think it is the most purest form of basketball that we will see in the professional landscape. And I just see growth from now.
I want to get your opinion on something that I think is a little bit controversial in the WNBA, but we see it in the NBA where they pit guys, the storylines become created by media, and they pit guys in the NBA against each other to create the dynamic and the electricity and the energy around games. We're now seeing the WNBA have that, which is, it's funny to me because it's like, well, where was this 5 years ago? Y'all are just making this up now. But it's like, now we're seeing what goes on in men's basketball and the dynamic and the energy and the storylines that are true or not true. Now that's starting to trend towards WNBA. As a woman, I hate to see it because I'm like, I hate cattiness. I hate just everyone can win. Pull up a seat. But now to see it actually coming to life, I can't tell. Is it real? Is it made up? Is it? It's also unfair because some of these girls are like, this isn't me, but I'm being portrayed as something. And it's another level. And I don't know that they're actually set up for success sometimes in those dynamics because it hasn't been before.
Well, it has.
Oh, you got some tea?
Well, there's always been some cattiness.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
if you have traditionally watched WNBA basketball, there's always been cattiness. I mean, you can go back to even when Detroit Shock were playing, they were known as like, you know, kind of like the side component of what the bad boys were, right?
Yeah.
No, there has been fights. There has been cattiness. There has been like players against other players. It just hasn't had wide media
Right, it hasn't had the platform.
attention.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, fair.
And so I don't think there's anything new here.
We're just seeing it now.
Exactly. But I also think like basketball is a sport, but for everyone, it's entertainment, right? And so like, if we're going to continue to grow this game, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, like we're going to have to pour into some of these things to continue to get people excited. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people right now are talking about the Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese is like, you know, the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird situation right now. And I think the only issue that I have is just like with the climate of our country right now and playing into dangerous territories and divisiveness that doesn't belong in sports. That's where I start to go, okay, this is doing a disservice for multiple layers of what sport is. Sport is like why I worked at Nike. Sport brings people together. Like that's the one thing. It doesn't matter where you're from, socioeconomical background, whether it be racial, it doesn't matter. It brings people together to cheer for a team to win because you want to be the victors, right? And so I think out of everything, it's just a disservice to the league and the women who are playing it the right way. There's no hate. It's just competitiveness. Does it get ugly? Absolutely. But we see that on the NBA side too. And, you know, it's just a part of the game.
Maybe I just have a soft spot because they're young women, and I'm like, don't make them be people they're not. But then maybe I'm not telling the truth, and they actually are those people. So
it's funny too, though, because I see like on ESPN where I'm seeing the storylines for WNBA. I was just in Hawaii, and I'm like, oh, they're teasing Caitlin Clark, which you never see that. So it's pretty cool because I know about the competitiveness and like really trying to get the entertainment. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool for WNBA. So
I mean, I think there's a healthy version of it, right?
Yes.
Where there is entertainment. You do got to spice it up. I mean, let's be honest, all sport can become monotonous when it doesn't have a little spicy. And people want to take a side.
I know.
Like, let's be
They do.
honest. There's like rap wars all the time between guys. Some of it's real, some of it's not. But it, you know, it sells.
It
right?
does.
Sexy, salacious stuff sells. I think as long as it doesn't hinder the mental health for people, it's fine. But I think that the one thing I've seen is these young women have become so poised in how they handle the criticism and the critique and the setups, as I call them, to where they're not taking the bait to then be like, see, we told you she was a bitch. Like, no, like I'm not. I know where you're going. So I feel like the organizations have done a really good job to help kind of guide and prepare them, not just like thrown them to the wolves, because their season's really quick. Their draft is in May. Is that right?
April.
And their season starts in May. Right. And then the NBA side, it's you have 4 months to like figure your shit out. And there it's like you got 2 weeks and then you're on the stage. How have you seen fashion change since you were in the WNBA?
The rules.
Oh, are there rules? Tell us.
Oh my goodness. I remember getting into the league and you couldn't wear sneakers.
Like in your walk-ins, you couldn't wear sneakers?
No, you couldn't wear them in travel. There was no sneakers
you
in
had to
travel.
be heels, like dressed up.
Well, a lot of us didn't wear heels, but it was like, you know, I think back then it was like, well, they're back now.
They're loafers.
No, it would be like the Prada sneakers. Like they were like,
designers.
You know, the designer, but they had to look like dress
expensive
shoes. Yeah.
Wow.
And so
to
that
travel?
was
I
know a lot of
are in
teams
quarter zips, Misty. Like
Well,
they're
now,
not,
post-COVID.
they're not. They're not
but
anything
before they were in
fancy.
3-piece suits.
Yeah.
I like that.
So-
We should go back. I like that. But Nike probably doesn't.
So I know there's teams you could only wear dress slacks or skirts.
Was it like a team rule or like a league rule?
It was probably a league rule. Yeah,
Wow.
it was wild. I remember that.
Would you get fined and
yes,
stuff?
you would get fined if you didn't wear the proper attire. So I think I can't remember what year it changed.
I had no
but
idea.
it was wild. And then it became like, okay, now you just have to dress up.
Yeah.
Now it's not as like
Well, it's like
ordained.
sport culture and sportswear
Yes.
is so evolved now.
It is.
That it's a lifestyle brand, not a streetwear brand. And so
Yes.
it's kind of taken its own like version of what is elevated and what is not. And it's all in one box. And so you kind of get to pick and choose.
Yeah, and I also think and I appreciate the league, both the NBA and the WNBA, to recognize that like we're not puppets.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't put us in a box because we don't all fit the box.
The same box, right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to be able to express ourselves, though within, the proper way, you're not going to do anything that's going to make the league look bad,
Yeah.
right? But you're able to kind of like show who you are because we don't get to talk a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You've got one of the best players on the league and you'll see those people at, after the game.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a lot of us like, we're quiet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to be able to have a moment like walking through the tunnel and
Yeah.
people be able to see your style and
Yeah.
be
You
Feel like they
known.
see you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
the player, but the person.
Yes.
Wow.
That's
Yes.
such a big thing.
And that's huge for us to
Yeah.
be seen outside of like who we are on the court.
Yeah.
How about like when you worked for Nike? So like you're designing or you're like in the apparel space, shoes, everything. What was that like for you? Were you working with different like WNBA teams, NBA teams league wide? Or were you just kind of generic?
So great switch because when I came to Nike, I actually got one of the coolest jobs on the planet, and it was to create the very first women specific basketball apparel. That was made for her, designed for her, and we spent a lot of time focused on just WNBA players. Like, what do you want your shorts to fit? Like, all the things where I'm like, I don't know why these men's shorts don't fit me, but I don't like it. And then you come to find out, like, they make shorts in a vertical and horizontal cut.
Yeah.
And they're not making space for our hips and our thighs. They're not taking into account the curves of our body. They're just saying, hey, basketball is basketball, which is true until you consider the apparel.
Right.
And so I got to do Swoosh Fly, which released, I believe, in 2020. And it literally changed the landscape of what women are wearing. If you look at like the crossover short that they wear during their practices, it has the tape that's wrapped around it. Like it's living and breathing. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh,
That's me.
yes, it's so
That's me.
So,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
take that
amazing.
moment because that is you. That has
It
to
is
be so cool to
every
see.
time I see it. Every time.
Wow.
It's matter of fact, when I got to the Pistons and they gave me one of the women's shorts, it was my short. It just had the Detroit Pistons logo on it, and I was like, this is such a full circle moment.
Oh,
That is
my
incredible.
God.
So,
They should be
yes.
like, so everyone wearing it, thank me because you can thank me for this because I had to struggle to get it, but I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the team that worked on the entire program, like, yes, it was rooted in athlete insights. It was rooted in the culture of the women's game. And we got to storytell. I think that for me, that was probably the most exciting part, was to storytell around the women's game. And I think it's obviously still living and surviving. I was a part of it for 6 seasons.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to unpack for me and everybody else. I know a little bit about it because I didn't join you, unfortunately, but I was there before you, I think, at Nike. When did you go
Yes,
there?
you were before that.
I know. That's so sad. We needed our stars to align a little bit better.
I
on
know,
that
right?
line. But when you talk about, athlete insight and things like that, I want you to explain what that means because it is such a hidden process from the public. They see something in the store that is a signature athlete line.
Yes.
What does that, like, how much goes into that from the design team to athlete influence to what the culture or the brand itself wants to project? Like, you don't just get to walk in and say, I want this. There has to
Right.
be a lot of collaboration. So maybe you pick an athlete that you worked with from a signature line of like what you created and the processes and pieces from start to retail.
Well, I think it's easier to talk about like a signature athlete because you're only speaking to one.
Yeah.
I think what I want to talk about is the insight you have to get from multiple areas,
Okay.
right? Because if you specifically talk about an NBA or WNBA athlete, that insight is very narrow. When you go spend days out on the road and you're going to New York, you're going to Chicago, you're going to LA, and you're getting with AAU teams, you're getting with collegiate teams, like the
Having
actual
focus groups,
consumer, right, from 14 to about 19 years old, they're going to tell you what is hot in that street and what is not. And so the insights really is you bring a bunch of product, you throw it out on the table, you just want them to touch it, look at it, and let them go on their own without feeding them any information. And that's probably where you get the truest version of what insight is. Like, man, I wear this at a date. Like, I would wear this, like going from the court straight to my date. Like, you get insights where you're like, oh, wow, of course. Like, they want to be able to wear their clothes whenever and it still be dope. No matter where, right? If I want to go to the movies, I can chill in it, or I can. If somebody tries to play me, like, oh, okay, I'll take you. Right now. We're gonna go right now. And so you start to recognize with athletes in general, they don't want only performance. They want to perform in the clothes they think are dope. And so that's like really what insights are, is like really getting to the heart of what matters for our consumer and creating product from that and rooted in it.
How long does that take? What's the process from like a focus group to retail? Like, I want people to understand. It's not, people think it just happens overnight. I've been through it. It is not. It is 18 months is usually, I mean, that was a while ago when we started it, but like, it's a process of trial and error and trial and error and fit and fit and fit and fit to make sure it can sustain the marketplace. But you're saying they want it now and you're getting that insight now, but by the time it hits retail, it's how do you project what's going to stay hot and what's not? Yeah.
So footwear, it's going to be anywhere from 18 months to 2 years. It just takes longer. From ideation to in Foot Locker.
18 months.
18 minimum to 2 years.
Wow.
And if it has anything to do with innovation, it may be longer.
Wow.
With apparel, you're going to get anywhere from 12 months, because we're quickening up some things, to 18 months. It just depends on what it is, which area of the business you're talking, lifestyle versus performance. So it takes a long time. But I think one of the pieces that you're missing is you have to validate it. So it comes out, now you got to go back to the same groups and validate that product to see if you went far enough, you went too far. And then that's how things change within life cycles of product.
How does somebody get that job? Like how do no, I mean, seriously, people are like, okay, that sounds really cool. I want to do that. Like, I don't see that like listed on Nike's website with that explanation. So like, how would someone that wants to be involved in design, innovation, creation of apparel, lifestyle, footwear, what do they do? What should they do? Where should they start? Because I'm sure they want to be a designer, but baby girl, we're going to start over here in this section and work our way there.
Well, I didn't design. I was more of an influence on design, right? Which is huge, right? Especially given that I came from the world of basketball. So my lens is a bit different than a designer who hasn't. So partnership and collaboration is huge. There are now schools like universities that have programs for product line managers. So that's what like the role and title is called. So you'll have an associate product line manager, or you'll have a product line manager. Those are always going to be up on Nike's site or any other sporting company for that matter. They'll have those, and those are the titles that you're looking for.
Okay. And the other thing I want to talk about design, because I've been through it year over year. Designers at these shoe companies, they flip around.
They do.
How is that possible?
Well, if you
because they go because they're all in Portland. Everybody's based in Portland now, predominantly. I mean, the big heavy hitters are in Portland. Then the designers kind of, you'll see them at Under Armour, then you'll see them over at Nike, and then they'll pop to Adidas and they'll go back to Nike. Like, is it just like a hot commodity, or is it like?
Well, they can't flip that quick because there is competition, non-compete clauses. But they do hop around within Nike as well. I mean, think about it. If you have a really great designer, and mind you, there's many, but sometimes someone's vision is only, what we'll call it, like 3 life cycles worth. Right? You'll need new, fresh ideas. So that's why they're moving around. Right? And then there's some people who stay there for 20 years, like a Tinker Hatfield. Well, he's been there longer, but he's just a genius at like what he does. So it just really depends.
That's so wild. It's interesting to see, because especially for like signature athletes, they're like, oh, we're bringing in a new designer. Like, I thought they were at somewhere else, and then oh, you're back. Like, you know, you've been somewhere for so long. What was one of the things you felt like at Nike, before we jump to the next phase in your career, is an opportunity? You're one of the very few women in Nike Pro, which was fantastic. So I want to touch on that, because when I was there wasn't any Nike Women Pro. And I want you to talk about what that is and what that role services and does, and then where you think there, you know, as we see women take more leadership roles, where there might be an opportunity to continue to see that, or is it already happening and we just don't know yet?
So you're talking about being at Nike, being in sports marketing.
Yeah.
So I feel like my entire post-basketball career has literally been just opportunities in me killing my job and being offered new ones. And so all the jobs that I've had, I've never really seeked out. It's more along the lines of, hey, you have this talent, we need it over here. And then I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're doing, but sure, we'll figure it out. And so Nico Harrison, who is now with the Dallas Mavericks, he became one of my mentors very early in my career at Nike. And I just found the way his mind worked to be very unique and different. His perspective on leadership and empowering people to do the work was great. And so we were close. And he ended up hitting me up about sports marketing one time, and I was like, nah, I'm cool on that. Because at Nike, like, sports marketing was like considered like the mob.
No.
Like,
I don't even know if considered's the right word. Let's just keep it real. They're their own like mob family, and it's not a like welcoming place.
Yes.
It is like you're the new house on the street that everyone drives by.
Yes.
Like, yes. Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm good. I'm really enjoying like this lifestyle space. I love clothes. I'm a fashion girl. Like, I don't want to go over there. And he was like, okay. And then there was another opportunity he wanted me to apply for and go through the competitive process. And at this point in my career, it was really important to be intentional about my moves. Not move to move, but is this going to match the vision of what I want for myself in the future? And he sat me down. He kind of told me what it was about. It included Signature Athlete, building their brand and their business, obviously helping with the creation of shoes, their signature shoe year over year, and learning how to work the matrix at Nike, right? Which I basically figured out how to do very quickly. And how do you collaborate with teams cross-functionally? And I was like, yes. Because at the time, I wanted to run Olympics for Nike. It was a huge thing for me at the moment when this was happening. And I felt like this was a stepping stone to get me the experience that I needed for that role. And so, yeah, I ended up being a part of a team in sports marketing, basketball specific, and ended up running half the league while I was there, which was crazy. You get into something, you have no idea what you're about to get into. And I was like, I'm going to do what? I'm on the road.
I feel like they don't tell you because you have that response. You're like, not for me. So it's like dangle the carrot. And then once you're here, we're going to.
Man.
And when you say running the league, because I know what that means. And I want everyone listening to understand, like, you were, you know, I want to say this properly and not dumb it down, but like, you are the go-to person for NBA athletes that were Nike athletes. So you were their, not direct report isn't the right phrase, but you were their direct connect to the brand. And then you were also, from the brand side, pushing down what the brand needed into athletes. Because I don't think people understand how methodical and chess game that is. Not just like, oh, I got a Nike deal. Cool, I'll do what I want. It's like, yes and no.
Yeah.
So I want you to break down what that role is, because it's such a powerful role because it controls so much.
It does. So I would articulate it as being the bridge between the brand and the athlete.
There you go. That's a way better way to say it.
Yeah. And so,
I couldn't get there.
Basically, I was responsible for relationship management. You know, making sure that our athletes, a bit from like an agent, like if you were an agent, I'd be an agent for Nike, right? So we would be in charge of, contract negotiations, making sure our athletes had everything they needed on court, off court, summer packages, making sure their family was taken care of. So it was a very personal experience when you build these relationships with these athletes. You try to get them to see like what they offer beyond just, hey, you are a contracted athlete with Nike, and it's like, cool, give me my shoes and we're done. I think the sport landscape has changed, that it's no longer just like, I give you shoes and we give you money. It's more of a partnership now. It's literally like, how can we help you use our brand to build your platform, and then how can we use your platform to build our brand? It's a true partnership, and I think a lot of athletes go into a lot of these contract negotiations having no idea what is expected on the back end.
Yeah.
Right. So I would be in charge of making sure they understood that. Also helping to partner with them any way that I could.
Yeah.
You know, you have some athletes that are engaged, and then you have other athletes that just aren't engaged at all. So we try to make sure we're getting the athletes that want to be with us. Right?
And I've seen that too, like over the last, few years where NBA athletes are, big on promoting their products on their social media.
Right.
You're seeing different designs with like Adidas and Nike with like their shoe brands, which is so cool just to see it as like as a consumer.
Yeah.
Now transitioning, what made you take the jump from Nike to the NBA? And then what is your role? Like what does your role entail with the Detroit Pistons?
Yeah,
As you know it today.
As I know it
As
today, yeah. So
new.
I had-
Breaking news here, people.
Yeah, I had
news.
no intention on leaving Nike. I think I had kind of given up on the Olympic vision for myself because I always go back to Nico. One of our conversations was, so you think I should do this? And he'd be like, think bigger. And I'm like, bigger? What's bigger? And so that always kind of sits in my mind when I get into these situations where I'm like, is that where I should go? And I always hear Nico, think bigger.
Nico's just in your brain.
Yes.
And you're like, get out of my head, bro.
Yes.
Like,
And the reason I think I rely on that is because he saw so much in me.
so important.
Right.
You say that all
and
the time.
That like sometimes I can cut myself short. And I think that just goes back to my playing days. Like I was a role player. So to be like main character energy is a bit uncomfortable for me sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think me listening to that voice of think bigger is to remind myself that I do have like superpowers and I need to lean into that. And so I got a call from Trajan, and, we've had a relationship since I was with the Pelicans. We never, not once, talked about a job ever. Just cool people.
Yeah.
And I love cool people. I love good people, good eggs, right? Because it's important to find those in this league.
There's not
right?
a lot. And when you do, you hold on to them.
Absolutely. And so I talked with him.
Hold on 1 second. Literally on cue from last week. Yesterday. It's like right time. Are we good,
They're going to
Ryan?
pick it up. They're going to pick it up. So we're good.
Oh, thanks. Ryan.
They're making them carry it. It's his brother. That's hilarious. Okay, so sorry. I didn't want
No,
that.
you're
This
okay.
is important, so I didn't want it to get overpowered.
Yeah. And so we had a conversation, and he was mentioning the things that he was very impressed by me, and if I would ever consider leaving Nike. And I was like, to do what? Because in my brain, again, I'm not thinking, I have many relationships in the league due to the fact that I'm constantly on the road and in these arenas throughout the season. But he was like, hey, listen, I think that you have a tremendous amount of experience. You understand what it's like to go through every avenue of an athlete career, from being drafted all the way to that hard decision to walk away. I've started 0-10 on a team. I've also won a championship. Like, I understand all the facets of starting and sitting on the bench or never getting an opportunity. And there's just so many ways to relate to our athletes that, like, there's a lot of value in that. And so for me, again, I keep meeting people who see me in ways that I don't see myself, in avenues in which I can really make meaningful impact, right? I think anybody can make impact, but like, how can it be meaningful and long lasting? And, to go into a situation like Detroit Pistons and where it is now, it's one hell of a challenge. And I love that.
Yeah.
I have always taken challenges head on. And so I think for me, thinking about, okay, do I stay or do I go? For me, it was, if your dreams aren't big enough
To scare you.
they're just not big enough. And to leave this, what I've been calling it, my incubator. Nike's been my incubator. Nike has built me up. It has given me the confidence. It's allowed me to understand what I'm really capable of.
Yep.
And in order to really see what I got, I have to leave. And that means I'm going to have to jump out of the bird nest, and I'm going to have to stretch these wings that I have built, and I've worked hard to build them, see how big they are, and fly. And so I think it's really just stepping out on faith, knowing that I have someone like Trajan who truly believes in me and is willing to give me full autonomy to do the thing that I need to do for the team and for the organization. It's a lot of pressure, but at the same time, I'm like,
exciting though.
I've been a player for so long. I know what pressure is.
He said, please, I came from the mob. I'm good.
Yes. And so hence that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool because I think you touched on something a lot of our guests touch on and we talk about is you oftentimes don't give yourself enough credit. I think part of it's a woman thing. I think part of it is should I not? It's comfortable. I can do this forever. Or I can say, I don't know what's next, or I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to learn and take the skills I have. But I find sometimes women are very like, and people see it. They're like, you're traveling to meet. You should come here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. See you next Tuesday. What?
Yeah.
But when people see it in you and you trust them, it's such a beautiful thing because they don't have to seek you out to do that.
They don't.
They don't. And they could easily give it to someone else that they don't. But I think when I look at you and your career and the place you're going, it's to build something beyond yourself.
Yes.
And that's what's so powerful about this role with the Detroit Pistons is because you're bringing your experience, your confidence, your collaboration, your relationship skills to a place that's almost an empty table. And you get to pull up the chairs and you get to pick the people and you get to build something that when you transition on to what's next for Misti, it's like your own little creation that that's the true testament of a leader is when your culture is sustainable without you there. And that's what you've done. You've created that at Nike. You've created that in so many places at Nike. And now you're going to go do it at the Detroit Pistons, who they need a lot of culture. They need a lot of help, but there's so much opportunity to do it. What do you think as we get ready to close out the show? We don't need a whole nother episode.
I know.
But I feel like we're going to have to do it after she's been with Detroit for like 6 months and be like, okay, girl, what are we doing now? How is it? How do you see, the next you? Like, what advice would you give to the next you or the young girl watching this being like, I want to be Mistie Bass-Boyd? What advice would you give to the young Mistie Bass-Boyd and the one that wants to be Mistie Bass-Boyd?
I think maybe over when I look at the last 5 years, and it truly is to really not care what other people think of you. Really, I think I have gone from being a very dependent person, just when you play basketball, you're dependent on someone saying, "Hey, great job."
Validation.
You want to keep your job. You want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. And I think I'm finally at a place where I don't have to prove a thing.
Yeah.
I am who I am. And so I would challenge anyone who's listening is to be yourself 100% unapologetically. The people who don't like it will fall to the wayside, and the people that you need, you'll attract to yourself. And there's no better thing than to be who you are and be confident in that and know that if you're happy, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And everything's going to turn out exactly the way it's meant to be, as long as you keep doing the right thing in the right way with the right mind frame. Yeah. Love yourself, because if you can't love yourself, it's going to be hard to love everybody else.
I know.
Yeah, and just keep pushing. People tell me, when is enough enough? I guess when it's enough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Define enough. I'm not sure, because your version and my version might be different. So I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Yeah. So, I know I'm a woman in a male's world.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
But when you carry yourself a certain way, if you are a positive person and you believe in yourself, people will fall in line. They really do. And, my goal is to continue to inspire the world. And that world right now is the Detroit Pistons. And I want people to walk away from this organization, whether they're coming in or coming out, and go, they've got it together.
Yeah.
Like it feels different.
Yeah.
Right. And so that will be what I focus on for the next 6 months.
She's like the queen of the castle up there.
Yeah, literally.
I absolutely love it.
You've already inspired me, by the way. So
I know, right? We'll be in Detroit to come see you.
Oh, I hope so.
We have 3 questions for
Yes.
you. I want you to tell our listeners we're all about Fit for Success. Good American, one of our partners, is
Okay.
really into body inclusivity,
Yes.
positive self-talk, but also just celebrating yourself. What is a Fit for Success for you look like? What is your power
My power
wardrobe?
look.
Yeah.
Gosh,
This
that
Chris
depends
White
on.
shirt is just killing right now.
is.
So
Yeah, today I was like, this is my first day public, as a part of the Detroit Pistons. And so I always ask myself, what do I want to say without saying it? And so usually my clothes have a message behind it. And so given today that I'm out here for the first time, I want people to know I'm all about business, but
Polished, professional.
polished,
Polished,
professional, confident, and but also casual with the kicks. Like the kicks are always going to be a thing, and so I think it just depends on the day.
Yeah.
Like I'm a chameleon when
Yeah.
it comes to things, and I just lean into how I'm feeling for the day.
Yeah.
When people see me, I want them to notice.
yeah.
Command
Command that presence. kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I like when I don't have to say a thing and people get it.
I want you to see me, but I might not see you. Yes, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And you look just glowing today on your
you.
first day with the Detroit Pistons. I'm so excited. Okay, we're going to wrap up our show with Tina's vodka question in this
Okay.
little jar. I don't know what's in it. We never know. Some are fun, some are
Okay.
crazy. So we're going to
Let's
let
do it.
you pick one, and then you're going to tell our guests just a little bit of how you would answer that.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would
this
it
is a
be
goodie.
with and why? Okay, so I always go off of what just came off the top of my head. So in 2014, we won a championship. In 2015, I met Barack Obama, and I was standing next to him for the trophy ceremony. And I don't get
Starstruck.
not at all.
Yeah.
And I had already shook his hand, had already met him, and I was standing beside him, which I thought was super dope. And I ended up kind of before the picture, kind of kneeling down a little bit because some of my teammates in the back couldn't see and I wanted them to be in the picture. And so ever so gently, he leans over to me and whispers in my ear. He's like, "We love tall women around here. Stand up." And I was lost. Y'all, I lost it. I lost it. And so if
Did you stand up? You're like, yes, sir.
I didn't. I almost passed out because I was just I had such the girly moment of oh my God, my president
Are you
just told me
talking
that.
to me? Or is anyone else hearing this? Or
Listen,
is it in
I
my
was probably
head?
blushed. I had a smile that was out to here. I was so embarrassed at the pictures later. But if I
such a
had to
beautiful
choose, I tell this story because if
Wow.
I had to choose, I would love to sit down to dinner with him because I feel like his energy, his charisma, the way he thinks and speaks, I would love an hour of his time because yeah, he's the man.
So,
Yeah.
Barack, we're going to go ahead and make the ask for Misty here. But also go ahead and win the championship so you can take yourself back. So she
True.
has secondary motives to this, Detroit. I see where she's going. I'm sure you could be like, well, now that we won a championship, Mr. President, could we just,
We'll just go to your house. We
We're
don't
just
need the
gonna
White
go by.
House.
Actually, you know what? We'll
Yeah.
host you. We don't even need to intrude. You can Trajan, find the place we're
Yes,
going.
absolutely.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on our
Thank
show.
you for having me.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
great.
I love it. Okay, and we are going to hold you to another episode in a couple months because I want to see what changes you're making and really dive into the Pistons. And
Would love to.
when there are more to that because
Yes.
it is a lot coming your way.
It is.
Yeah.
First day on the job.
Woo, congrats.
Mistie Bass-Boyd,
Can't
Detroit
wait.
Thank you.
Pistons, right here on her table at Summer League. Thank you
Yes.
so much for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, hands down, one of the shining superstars coming into the NBA fully to the team side. Misty is just an icon. She's a queen. I love listening to Nico was my boss at Nike too, so we share the same boss from way back in the day. But I think listening to her talk about how just trusting your gut and always pushing yourself forward, I think sometimes we get caught up in wanting what's next for us so quickly. And she just waits for the door to open. And she's just such a positive, amazing energy that has so much life experience to give.
No, I was so inspired by just talking to her. I'm like, we need to bring her back ASAP. And
Oh yeah, we're doing a second show. There's like
Yeah.
zero question.
Yeah.
We're going to do another show.
I can't wait. But even like, just, as someone who watches the WNBA now and seeing, where it started to where it is today and seeing her take, like the fact that they had to have rules for their fashion, that what they would wear, like that's beyond me.
Well, and if you think about it, we had a past guest say they didn't even get maternity leave.
Yeah.
So you don't get maternity leave, but you're going to get fined if you're not in appropriate dressy footwear. That sounds a little weird, but
is.
it's made progression. I love hearing her take two on the WNBA and just the growth of it, the visibility of it, and her really being a pioneer in that. I think there's so much testament that can be given to her being in that place first and creating that path and that platform for these young women like Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, who we see now headlining for the WNBA. She was part of that path blazing early on. She played in Lebanon. She played overseas
I know.
for 8 years. So, I mean, there's so much to get into with her, but there is no one more deserving of the role she has, just taken on with the Detroit Pistons. Officially, ladies and gentlemen, for the first day on her job with the Detroit Pistons, she stopped here at her table first. That's a true testament of an amazing human, great relationship. I just could not be more grateful she was here.
Same, me too. I think she was amazing. It was awesome hearing her journey, hearing her at Nike and what she's done for women's basketball with her space at Nike. And she's just an inspiration. I can't wait to see what she does at the Detroit
And
Pistons.
when you guys see the women's shorts with the little tape on them, know that is Mistie Bass-Boyd. She made that. That is her. Shout her out when you guys see her. Make sure you guys remind her and let her know and thank her. What she did at Nike was just blazing and innovation over in women's basketball in the lifestyle and apparel company. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, joining us today. We can't thank our sponsors enough. Good American, Dry Bar, Wild Collective, and of course, Tina's Vodka got us the best answer of the day with whom Mistie Bass-Boyd would love to sit down and have dinner with. So Barack Obama, we're going to tap you for that one. Get with your girl. Mistie's amazing people. Y'all need to make it happen and get dinner. That's it for us. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow along, and we'll see you guys next time on Her Table.